Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Amalgam Comics. Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen these combined characters in madcap adventures, never realizing they were born of two different realities. But someone threatens to unmake their very existence, and someone else really doesn't like that idea. Paging Dr. Strangefate.
Real doctor or PhD?
PhD.
The cover is pretty good. Nothing complicated, just the Mystic Master charging his hand against a blue backdrop and either a giant ball of energy or the planet Mars, I can't tell. If it's the latter, it looks like the moon has a rival for what heavenly body artists draw dramatically oversized. Written by Ron Mars, with art by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Kevin Nolan, and Matt Hollingsworth, we begin with Axel Asher, aka Access, making his way through the sewers in a panic. He's out there, somewhere, not truly understanding what he is, but carrying the keys to the destruction of everything that exists.
Funny, he doesn't look like Dan Didio.
Axel feels like he's lost whatever was chasing him and stops to catch his breath, which I bet is just dandy while standing in raw sewage, but his pursuer has caught up with him, a creature called Abominite. Isn't that the spread that Australians put on their sandwiches? Well, whatever it is, he doesn't like visitors in his home, and tries killing the intruder, only for Asher's powers, still new to him at the time, to transport him to a rooftop. After we go to several panels of a suit-up sequence, we get a formal splash page of Dr. Strangefate. I am prepared.
If this doesn't win me the costume contest, I'm turning every one of those judges into frogs.
He has a man named Mix summon 3 agents to do a job for him. Bruce Banner, aka Skulk, Frankie Rayner, the Jade Nova, and Wanda Zatara, the White Witch. Each of them indebted to the sorcerer. He wants them to find and retrieve a single man, a job that Frankie doesn't feel quite requires 3 people. Wanda concurs while getting up close and flirty, but the Doc isn't in the mood. He conjures an image of Access and says he's greater than any previous threat they've faced, such as Baron Wotan and Mephisatanus.
You mean he's going to be the instigator in poorly conceived retcon stories where he nullifies superhero marriages and gives them painfully stupid new origins?
The Doc says that there will be more severe measures required than imprisonment for this target, as he threatens their very reality. But his destruction isn't their mission. Just catch him and bring him to Strangefate's sanctum. They've all proven reliable in the past, never having failed an assignment, and encourages them to keep that streak going as Mix magically sends them on their way. The attendant then asks why the doctor doesn't go after Access himself, and he explains that this young man poses a unique threat to everything he's built, so his agents will test Asher, letting Strangefate discern strengths and weaknesses, learning everything he can for when he finally engages the matter himself. It's basically orchestrating from his throne and getting what he wants by manipulating others, which Mix finds a lot like his servitude in this dimension.
This does have me curious about Mr. Mixia-Spitlick. He's a fifth-dimensional imp that warps reality and drops hints that he knows he's in a work of fiction. I do wonder what his perspective on the whole DC versus Marvel fight would have been, but given his powers, I think maybe it was easier on the writers just to not delve into it.
Axel has climbed down to street level, and I guess someone thought Jackal was better dressed than we'd seen in the Darklaw comic. He's approached by Banner, who says that he wants to help, trying to convince him that he understands being an outcast, but even confused about the combined reality he's in, Asher isn't buying it. Given little other recourse, Banner decides to force cooperation by transforming into the Skulk, who's basically Solomon Grundy. I mean, it's kind of fitting that Banner, who turns into the Hulk, would turn into this character who's kind of a zombie Hulk. Heck, both have been voiced by Fred Tatasciore. But I'm getting off topic. Access makes a break for it, saying he'll never step into another alley again in his life. Only to step into another alley and run into Frankie, who shows off why she's called the Jade Nova, her ring transforming her into, well, basically DC's Brazilian metahuman Fire. Skulk catches up, and the two almost nab Access, but he teleports again, as if by instinct. But Skulk and Nova's loss is White Witch's gain.
And Axel's too, from a certain perspective. I mean, his parents named him Axel. that any woman has not yet walked away from him laughing should be considered a superpower on its own.
The explanation for how she found him is pretty ambiguous. She just says magic. Whether that means she went to him or magically made him go to her, I have no idea. And she seems to use more magic when she plants a kiss on him and he's rendered unconscious. Either that or he's got that trait found in stereotypical nerds and he passes out anytime a hot chick shows any kind of interest in him. She takes her quarry to Strangefate, does some more flirting, but is ordered to revive him before being escorted out by Mix, whom she proceeds to hit on. Confining access with a mystical Ankh, the self-proclaimed protector of, / most powerful being in, this universe, reveals he knows everything about the young man, since on top of his training in magic, he's always been a powerful psychic. He determines that Asher's continued existence is a threat to his reality, and with his tower inhibiting his transportation powers, Strangefate uses his all-seeing eye to erase the wild card from existence, and destroying the shards of the previous universes he holds within him.
And with Axel's passing, it's going to look like half the 1990s are dying before your eyes.
To the sorcerer's surprise, his captive doesn't have the shards. They're hidden someplace they won't be found until Axis figures out how to restore the component universes. Freed from the Ankh, he begins to escape, with Professor Peculiar Destiny asking him not to undo his world. Maybe if he added a pretty please with a magical cherry on top, it'd work. Axel jumps out the window, managing to avoid any glass cuts like a good action hero, and now outside the tower, uses the desire to not decorate the rocks below with his organs to gain some control over his powers and transport away. The comic ends with Strangefate declaring defeat, everything he'd hoped to improve in the world all for naught.
Are you a real doctor or a doctor like Dr. Pepper's a doctor?
As he floats into the depths of his home, he discards his helmet to reveal his true face, that of Charles Xavier.
So concludes Dr. Strangefate. There was more attention paid to the guy he was chasing, but I thought it was a pretty good story nevertheless.
The title character was fairly ominous for the most part, with those around him doing his bidding with few questions. How his agents behaved could be considered rather telling, each having a different take on following orders. Frankie showed some mild rebellion, being more arrogantly curious than outright defiant, and falling in line rather quickly. Banner was ready to follow orders, more or less no nonsense, and Wanda was amiable, but also willing to have a little fun while she was at it. The Doc does a lot of boasting, not quite as much magic, before Axel is brought before him, but it could be argued that it speaks to his power that these other capable characters choose not to go against him. Though despite being the most powerful, it does raise questions as to why Wanda woke Asher up. Couldn't Strangefate do that after she left, or is there some unmentioned rule that the initial caster has to undo certain spells? Is he that committed to being some master manipulator? After so many stories focusing on specific merged heroes, it was a good idea to check up on Access, see what he went through on this Earth before he fixes everything. It makes sense that any force that realized what he could do wouldn't risk being erased. And we get a legitimate threat in the form of Strangefate. Having completed all the first wave of amalgams, I'm beginning to think that it wasn't so much lack of communication, maybe they just weren't concerned with the continuity. When I reviewed the first batch a couple of years back, there wasn't quite so much overlap between characters, stories, events, but it's in this second batch that feels much more likely that they just thought, let's have fun with this gimmick since the universe is short-lived, and they didn't feel the need to be too adherent to a strict singular continuity. Whether that's for better or for worse, your mileage may vary.
Sure, I've made fun of him several times, but in all honesty, if you were to pop up today and fix some current problems I have with comics, then I'd get over the fact that he should by all rights be called Captain 90s. I'm the Angry Spork, and man have I got issues.